What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of History with Mr. Mink. And today, we're going to be talking about some pharaohs. One, two, 3, 4. That's enough of that. At the end there, that was like putting a warhead in your mouth. So what's a pharaoh? Pharaoh is the name given to Egyptian kings. The word pharaoh actually means great house and referred to the palace they lived in. The first pharaoh is believed by most scholars to be a man called Menes, who also went by Narmer. He took the throne in 3150 BC and through conquest united Upper and Lower Egypt. This created the first Egyptian dynasty and was the beginning of the Egyptian Empire. Menes is also known for founding the city of Memphis.
Visit Memphis, Tennessee. Elvis used to live here.
Wrong Memphis, but Memphis, Tennessee is named after the city Memphis in Egypt, which served as the first capital of United Egypt. There are far too many pharaohs to cover in one short video. Actually, there were 170. So I've picked a few notable ones to cover. Maybe I'll make more videos in the future about some pharaohs. The main pharaohs I'm going to concentrate on in this video are Hatshepsut, Ramses II, and the most famous of all pharaohs, Tutankhamun, more commonly known as King Tut. So let's start with Tutankhamun, aka King Tut. He is unquestionably the most famous of all Egyptian pharaohs. Growing up, he was the only one I knew. I thought he must have been the best, most accomplished pharaoh of all time. He became pharaoh in 334 BC, and his reign only lasted around 10 years. The only real change he made as king was restoring their ancient religion, which worshipped many gods. His father had tried to force everyone to worship one god, and was actually pretty hated for it. So much so that after his death, the Egyptians removed him from their list of kings, and his existence was only known about when his remains were dug up. Trying to erase pharaohs from history is actually pretty common throughout Egyptian history. You'll see another example of this later on. In all honesty, King Tut is famous for nothing he did as pharaoh. What he's actually famous for is his tomb. In 1922, a British archaeologist named Howard Carter found Tut's tomb. Egyptians believed very much in the afterlife and buried pharaohs with items they would need there. This included everything from gold, servants, food, and even toilets. You can never be too prepared. What made Tut's tomb so special was how intact it was. Most tombs were nearly empty from being robbed over the years. King Tut's was not, and contained several notable items including his mummy, as well as his famous gold death mask, which I'm seen wearing here. One thing I never understood is if it's pronounced Tutankhamun, why does he go by King Tut? I guess King Tut doesn't sound quite as noble. Fun fact, the most recognizable monuments in Egypt are the pyramids of Giza, outside Cairo. A view from the opposite side shows just how close they are to the city. Strange, right? I always thought they were way off in the desert somewhere. On to the next pharaoh. I admit I have not studied all 170 pharaohs, but the next one is my personal favorite of them all, Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut took a different approach than many pharaohs in growing the empire. Hatshepsut grew the empire by trade more than war. She was interested in restoring trade to the region. Hold up, what? That's right, she. She was interested in restoring trade to the region, and her ideas eventually led to groups of nations working together for the first time in history. Her reign was a very peaceful time in Egyptian history. She was the second female pharaoh, but is widely considered the most successful female pharaoh out of the 7 who reached this title. Egyptians were also fans of cats. In order to gain the trust of her people, Hatshepsut actually dressed like a man and even wore a false beard. This was so people would think she was a good leader. That kind of shows you what they thought of women back then. Pretty sad, actually. Fun fact! Most pharaohs were actually clean-shaven, and the beards you see are fake. Her nephew, who was a very successful pharaoh in his own right, actually had her name removed from monuments that were built in text. It's thought this was to show that only males had led. Luckily, her tomb shows carvings that tell of her reign, and she was not forgotten. Man or woman, she goes down as one of the all-time great pharaohs. Before we get to our next pharaoh, here's an important update. I now have the support of my wife in my quarantine mustache journey. Hey Lexi, do you like my mustache?
No, I think it's disgusting.
Good, so you think I should keep it?
No, I think it's disgusting.
Well, like my mustache, maybe more of a work in progress. The next pharaoh we're talking about is Ramses II. He became pharaoh in 1279 BC and ruled for an incredibly 66 to 67 years. He lived to the age of 90, which is incredibly impressive when you realize, according to Google, that the average life expectancy for a male in the US today is 78. He expanded the Egyptian empire by many battles and conquests, and made Egypt very wealthy from the riches he acquired from other empires. However, he is most known for his contribution to Egyptian architecture. No pharaoh built more monuments than Ramses, and these have become an important part of Egyptian history and our understanding of Egyptian history. Another fun fact: in 1975, his mummy was sent to France to be restored. Apparently, it was in bad shape. I mean, what do they expect from a corpse over 3,000 years old? I just threw away some moldy bread that was only 2 weeks old. In order for this to be legal and ensure proper return, Ramses was actually issued a passport, which made him an official citizen of Egypt. He was also red-headed and fair-skinned. I'm guessing not how you picture Egyptian pharaohs. Ramses, according to some, is the pharaoh mentioned in Exodus, when Moses is telling him to let the people of Israel that were slaves go. That pharaoh is the same one I was singing about earlier. Well, trying to sing about. The Egyptian Empire lasted over 3,000 years. To put that into perspective, the United States has only been a country for 244 years. The last pharaoh of Egypt was Cleopatra, who is the most famous female pharaoh. After her suicide in 30 BC, the Egyptian Empire fell and was absorbed by the Roman Empire. This ended one of the most successful empires in the history of the world. That's the end of this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Please comment any facts you'd like to add, list some of your favorite pharaohs, or give me some potential ideas for future videos. I have links in the description below to some other videos of mine, including one on Alexander the Great, who had his own part to play in the history of the Egyptian Empire. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.